Hey everyone, I'm back. Hey, how's it going? Um, I'm making another video right now. Um, this video, of course, but besides all that, um, I wanted to make this video um, for educational and informational purposes, as well as inspirational purposes, but mostly educational and informational. Um, I mean, I guess they're the same thing. I mean, when you educate someone, you're doing it through information, right? you know. But yeah, anyway, um, for those of you out there who are unaware or who are aware of the mental disorder and disease of schizophrenia, I know there's also the form of schizophrenia, psychosis. I will talk about that as well in this video. But I'm mostly focused on schizophrenia as a whole. And I wanted to educate those of you out there who may stumble across this video and who will watch it um, on what schizophrenia really is, um, apart from and as opposed to what society has said it is. And I speak from a person who has experienced it, who still goes through it to this day. Um, like I said in my video, my love for the depressed, I don't go through depression anymore, but I never said I don't go through schizophrenia anymore. Okay. I still have voices in my head. I still have delusions of persecution in my mind that I go through on a daily basis. It never goes away. It's not anywhere near as bad, thank God, as it used to be. It's eased up a whole lot. God has eased it up a whole lot, I believe. But as well as loving family members and friends. But you know, I still go through it. You know, um, but I wanted to educate you all on what schizophrenia really is and um, what it means to be schizophrenic and what schizophrenic people really, really go through. And I'll share a bit of what I've been through as well. So I speak now. Uh, okay, for those of you who aren't aware of what schizophrenia is because of what society has told you, schizophrenia is not craziness. It's not a mental disease that causes people that have it to be very crazy or insane or out of their mind, okay, or outrageously ballistic, okay. Um, Schizophrenic people are not always violent, um, and not all schizophrenic people are violent. I should know. I'm schizophrenic. I've never been violent toward anybody in my life, ever. I've been schizophrenic since I was 15 and a half years young. I'm 27 now. But I want to let y'all know, in all honesty, that schizophrenia, as far as the history of it and as far as the diagnosis, it is simply when the mind is split off from reality. In other words, it is a condition where it is hard for the person with that condition to focus on reality. They are split in between two worlds. They're um, the delusional world in their minds. Not that they're crazy, not that they're crazy. Okay, just bear with me. Don't jump to conclusions so quickly. Don't be so quick to assume. Let me finish, okay? It's not that they're crazy, but they have delusions of persecution or even delusions of grandeur, um, of things that just aren't true in their minds. But because of those delusions of persecution or whatever have you, um, and because of them living in reality, they are split in between two worlds, the fantasy in their mind and the reality that actually surrounds them and that they actually live in. But it's hard for them to focus on that reality because they're split. You know, they're split off from that reality because of the delusions in their minds, the fantasies in their minds. And the reason why is because those fantasies seem so real and they look so vividly clear from a mentally projective a mentally projected perspective. In other words, what they see in their minds um, so clearly within those fantasies, they tend to project it out into real life, even though it's not real life at all. They tend to project it out into real life because of how real it looks and how real it seems in their minds. Okay, um, that includes with voices, the sounds in their minds, auditory hallucinations, as psychologists call it, and psychiatrists call it auditory hallucinations. They hear voices, they hear sounds speaking to them in their minds. Those voices could sound like loved ones or strangers, even, but either way, they're voices, you know? And um, the thing about those voices is that they bring confusion and they bring great distraction and even disturbance, depending on what type of voices they are and um, how those voices talk to them in their minds, what those voices sound like and everything like that. You know, I know because I've had voices, I still do. I've had voices in my mind for 12 years. Okay. They are very distracting. They can be. Um, very disturbing as well if they're violent, snappy, and spiteful and degrading and loud and hostile voices, very aggressive sounding voices in your head. I've had those, especially the spiteful type, voices that would tell me stuff out of spite and hate, um, that sounded hateful anyway. They're voices that can't really hate, but they sounded hateful. And, they, depending on what they tell you, they can be very hurtful too. The put downs, the negative, degrading comments, stuff like that. Sadly enough. And I also say sadly enough for those who struggle through it, definitely. But you know, guys, what was I saying? I'm sorry. Now I know what I was saying. It clicked on me, guys. I'm sorry. But anyway, because of the voices that sound so real to them in their minds, they tend to be taken away and captivated by those voices and distracted by them. And it's hard for them to focus on the real reality where maybe no one even said a daggone thing to them, you know? But it's the same with delusions of persecution. They have alternate scenarios, they're called, or alternate negative scenarios, as I call them, or negative alternate scenarios, however you want to put it, um, where they're being treated so violently and negatively and badly and cruelly and spitefully and with such animosity, you know, um, by people. And when they're treated like that, since it seems so real to them, that's why they tend to zone out into space, even when they're conversating with somebody, or if they try their hardest to focus on the conversation, but those delusions of persecution and voices are, happening in their minds and talking to them, they get really distracted, which is why they tend to have long pauses, or they tend to, you know, um, look in all kinds of directions, or they tend to have impediment speech. They can't get their words out exactly like they want to because those voices and scenarios are distracting them. Okay, um, that's the disorder of schizophrenia right there. They're not crazy, They're not crazy. Okay, here's what's happening. Those fantasies and delusions, well, those fantasies or delusions, however you want to put it, in their minds are drifting them away from reality. They're snatching them away from reality, and they're being sucked into that fantasy. And if they get sucked into it completely, if they do, then they're at a loss for words, and their mind is just lost, you know, not into reality anymore, not focused on what's really going on, okay? Because of those seemingly real fantasies, you know? I know they're just fantasies, but they seem real to the schizophrenic, so please understand. But the here the thing about it at all the thing about it is, y'all, is that schizophrenic people, they have a very strong, very um rough, and very difficult and complicated as well, um conflict and neurobiological distortion in their minds. The schizophrenic diseases or condition causes them to suffer distortion. Their mind is distorted, it's impaired, you know, and because the voices are so strong and they distract them so much and they snatch them away from reality and everything like that, because they talk so loud in their heads and so harshly even in their heads. um they the people who conflict with those voices, or whenever the negative alternate scenarios happen in their heads, those people who conflict with those negative alternate scenarios happening, those scenes in their heads happening, um, they they tend to um, have sometimes outbursts. If those voices and alternate scenarios, or what's happening in those alternate scenarios, get too intense, aggressive, or out of control, you know, outrageous even, they tend to have outbursts. They tend to blank out, or um, they have to walk away because they can't focus on the real conversation at hand when they're having a conversation with somebody or a few other people or whatever, you know and that's what the schizophrenic people suffer, y'all. They really go through a lot mentally. They go through a whole lot more than people underestimate them to go through, for real, than people understand. And schizophrenic people, the thing about it is, even though they're judged as crazy or insane or demented or deranged or whatever, um all that's inaccurate, all that's just assumption. you know they have it really hard because um what's going on in their minds, y'all, really causes them to how can I say it, um detach. Yeah, I guess we can say that. Detach from reality itself. They're stuck in the fantasy. They're stuck in the midst of those fabricated voices in their heads. Okay. Some people have delusions of persecution where violent, bad, dark, really even demonic stuff happens to them in their minds. Everybody's after them. If you ever heard people say, well, if you go through schizophrenia, you may think, if you ever heard psychologists or doctors say, well, people who go through schizophrenia, they think people are after them. They're paranoid a lot. They think people are after them, out to get them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's it. you know, um, they delusions of persecution. People are persecuting them on a constant, every day, every moment, every second basis. Okay, I'm not paying attention to them. I'm being very indifferent, and I'm not as affected by them as I used to be. Thank the Lord, But even now, as I speak, I have persecutions of some girl coming in, some girl that I met at my former job at Zaxby's here in South Carolina um, a few years back or a couple years back or whatever. You know, I have a delusion of persecution of some girl trying to stop me from speaking in this video and attacking me with put downs and attacking me by saying, you know, what reason do you have for making this video? It's not like your advice is good enough to help anybody. You suck at giving advice, stuff like that. Even now, guys, seriously, I mean, that's what schizophrenic people go through. Okay. But guys, they're not crazy. They're not insane. They're not deranged or any of that. They're not violent. And if they are, it's probably because they've been abused for so long in their minds, and since it seems so real to them, they're confused between reality and fantasy. So they may confuse the people who abuse them in their minds with people in real life, or because they've been misjudged and harshly criticized as being crazy so many times that they're tired of it, or they may be violent because they just have a lot of violence in their heart, but that doesn't mean that's everybody. Some people do. And that has nothing to do with schizophrenia. That has nothing to do with whether or not schizophrenic people are violent. No, some people are just violent by nature. They have a violent character. That's people with or without schizophrenia. But people with schizophrenia, most of the time, most of us are not violent at all. We suffer violence in our minds, happening to us in our minds from the delusions of persecution, like I said from before, but it doesn't mean we're violent. Um, so I just wanted to let y'all know that. And as far as psychosis goes, I told y'all I'll talk about psychosis, but as far as psychosis goes, um, psychosis is a part of schizophrenia. It's a form of schizophrenia. It is I wrote it in my book after reading a couple to a few articles on schizophrenia and psychosis. I remember writing it in one of my books that I'm soon to get published. Um, and psychosis is also when you lose touch with reality, and when your mind is very impaired and very distracted and very driven away by um, auditory hallucinations and delusions in your mind. And when you're very stressed from them too, you're very stressed as well. And you tend to get frantic at times when it gets too intense, at least. But psychosis also due to lack of sleep, you know, um, lack of focus, that kind of thing. Which can also come from lack of sleep. If you don't get enough rest, your brain gets scattered and you know, frantic and stuff like that. Very out of place, wild even. Um, but that's psychosis for you. But people who are psychotic, they're not crazy either. You know, they're not crazy either. They may be stressed. They may be um, they may get fretful and anxious at times, or um, they may be um, impaired in the mind because they're detached from reality because of mental struggles and conflicts and um, mental um, distorted and detached and um, mental um, let's see now, what's the word, guys, help me out. I'm just kidding, but mental I guess mental disconnections within their minds that they go through. But you know, they're not crazy. I believe that people really should study on psychosis and schizophrenia and what the real reason behind the diagnosis of those mental disorders and diseases are, um, so that they won't be so quick to assume and judge schizophrenic and psychotic people. Um, People, if they did that, then they would have more of a greater understanding, much more of a great understanding of schizophrenic and psychotic people, and what they really go through, and what they're really about, and the help they really need. So, um, you know, I know because I remember when I was 17 and 18 and 19, I was very psychotic, especially due to lack of sleep. Um, a lot of times, uh, and on top of that, delusions of persecution. You know, driving my mind to be unstable and um, hearing smart mouth, snappy, and aggressive and hostile voices in my head all the time. Every time I spoke a word or asked a question or told a fact, you know, I mean, they would attack me all the time. And I was really, really impaired and distracted. Um, I went through moments where every time I spoke, every time those voices came, or every time delusions of persecution of someone telling me, shut the F up and stop talking, no one wants to hear you talk, no one cares about your opinion, came into my head, you know, and they yelled it at me in my head, I would shut my mouth, or it would be hard for me to get my words out whenever I was talking to my mom or my aunt or my dad or older brother, um, or a friend of mine, because those voices and the visual hallucinations projected from my mind, projected out there, which seemed so clear and vivid to me, were distracting me. Um, so, yeah, I mean, just a bit of education, y'all, on what schizophrenic people really go through and why we shouldn't judge them and why we should pray for them and get them the counseling they need and ask them questions like, hey, buddy, or hey, girl, you all right? Hey, what's on your mind? What's on your mind? Something distracting you? Something bothering you? Are you troubled? We should ask them questions like this whenever there are signs, whenever they're zoning off into space a lot, or whenever they're talking to us, but they have these long pauses, or um, they have uh, this down, really grave expression on their face while seeming to be taken away by something from that fantasy in their minds. Ask them what's wrong. Ask them if they're going through something, because you never know what they're going through. You never know what's going on inside those scenes in their minds. Something violent or something extremely depressing or something very, very hateful and aggressive maybe going on in that scene. You never know in that scenario. Or maybe voices are shouting at them, telling them to hurt themselves or kill themselves, or that they're not significant and nobody cares about them, nobody loves them, and it's really beating down on them and wearing them out and draining their joy. I mean, we never know what they go through, guys. So, I mean, my request to y'all, my favor I gotta ask of y'all is, please study more about schizophrenia and psychosis and stuff like that. I mean, you'd be surprised what you learn, what you discover, and you'd be surprised to know that society has misjudged schizophrenic and psychotic people for an extremely long time. I mean, we're getting a little bit by bit better, every day, thankfully. Especially the more doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists research on it. Um, but we have to realize that this is not a joke. These people are really suffering mentally. They have it really difficult. Really, they conflict really badly, you know. Please pray for them. Give them advice, on how to fight and ignore and um, uh, meditate despite of, and you know pray about, all that, write down even, to release what they're going through in their minds on paper, you know um, about those voices and scenarios that go on in their heads. um, you never know who you can help. But that's my video to y'all. I hope y'all have watched this video. I hope many of y'all, or at least a few of y'all, stumble across this video, even if it's only a couple people, like literally 2 people. I would be glad. I would be happy because at least somebody viewed this video. You know, um, I just really want to help and really want to give information to people who are unaware, very oblivious to what it means to be schizophrenic. Um, it's just, I really don't think people should be passing on judgments so quickly toward people who go through so much in their minds, so much in life too, including with people who have social problems or spiritual problems. Don't judge them, guys. Please don't judge them, especially people who have psychological problems that really disturb and traumatize their psyche to a great degree. Don't judge them, guys. Please help them. Help them. Pray for them, okay? Pray for them. All right. I love you all. God loves you. Jesus loves you. And I hope that y'all want to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel and to this video. If you don't, that's fine. I just hope you view it and watch it and at least give it a chance and um, really think about what was said here. All right. I love y'all.